Lil Baby and Central C were supposed to be one of rap's most compelling transatlantic success stories. But new footage and reports have fans convinced that something has gone seriously wrong between them, after Lil Baby allegedly disrespected Central C in a way nobody saw coming. Back in May 2024, the two dropped Band for Band, a 2-minute single released under Columbia Records. On paper, it was a straightforward collaboration. In practice, it was a cultural moment. A West London rapper and an Atlanta legend sharing the same record. The internet didn't just notice, it went into a full spiral. The song moved. It streamed. And for a brief moment, it looked like the beginning of something much bigger between two of the most watched names in their respective scenes. But something happened behind closed doors. And when things go sideways between people of this caliber, the fallout rarely stays quiet for long. Central C reportedly stated that when he reached out to Lil Baby for the Band for Band feature, Baby charged him $400,000, and C paid it immediately. But later, when Lil Baby wanted Central C on his own album, and C came back with the same $400,000 rate, Baby reportedly refused. His reasoning? That they weren't on the same level. That one sentence is where the rope snapped. Think about what that actually means. Central C had paid $400,000 for a verse without hesitation, then turned around and asked for the exact same rate in return, a fair, equal exchange. Precisely what the phrase band for band literally means. And he was told no. Worse than no, he was told the reason why. Lil Baby didn't see them as equals. From the man he had just made a song with. From the man whose song title literally translates to reciprocal loyalty. The internet picked it up immediately. Clips started circulating across Twitter and TikTok within hours of the story breaking. Commentary exploded. Fans on both sides lined up to argue their position. But nobody, not even the most devoted Lil Baby supporters, could fully explain away the optics of that refusal. You take $400,000 from a man, name your collaboration after mutual respect, and then tell him he's beneath you when he asks for the same thing back. That's not a business decision. That's a statement. And once a statement like that leaks into the streets, not the internet, not a press run, but the actual streets, things move differently. Because both of these men do not exist only in the world of music videos and streaming dashboards. They move through real environments, with real people around them who take disrespect at face value. When you've got affiliates on both sides paying attention to every word being said publicly and privately, the music industry part of the beef quickly becomes the least dangerous part of it. This is the fire that got lit when that $400,000 conversation went sideways. And to understand why it spread as fast as it did, you need to understand who these two men are and what they each represent in the worlds they come from. Dominique Armani Jones, known to the world as Lil Baby, did not come up through the rap industry the way most artists do. He didn't spend years grinding open mics or leaking mixtapes from a bedroom. Young Thug had previously referenced Lil Baby in a radio call that opened up a broader conversation about Baby's business dealings and the people he keeps in his corner. That's the version of Lil Baby the industry knows. A man whose loyalty is non-negotiable and whose business is conducted on his terms, always. By the time Band for Band dropped in 2024, Lil Baby was not a rapper on the come-up looking for validation from a transatlantic feature. He was already a certified commercial force, an artist whose projects moved millions of units, whose tours sold out arenas, and whose name carried weight in rooms where most rappers never get a seat. Reports had surfaced at various points about significant financial offers, including exit packages rumored to be in the 9-figure range being placed in front of Baby by major industry players. Whether those deals materialized or not is secondary. The point is this. That is the scale at which Lil Baby operates. 9 figures as a conversation starter. So when Baby reportedly put a $400,000 price tag on a verse for a UK rapper, even one as globally respected as Central C, that number was not pulled from thin air. It was a statement of market value. And the fact that Central C paid it without flinching says everything about how seriously C takes his transatlantic positioning. He didn't negotiate. He didn't counter. He paid $400,000 digitally, quickly, like it was a bill, because he understood exactly what a Lil Baby feature meant for his profile in the United States. But here's the detail that makes Lil Baby's subsequent refusal so jarring. He didn't just take the $400,000 and move on. He He then came back and wanted Central C on his own project, which means he valued what C brings to a record: the UK credibility, the streaming audience, the transatlantic cultural currency. And then, when the bill came back around, he said they weren't on the same tier. The street code reading of that is straightforward. He used him. He took the $400,000 feature fee, delivered the verse, and when it came time for a fair exchange, he flipped the power dynamic. That's the read that got out into the world. And once that read is out there, it's not a PR problem anymore. It's a respect problem. Respect problems in the world Lil Baby and his circle come from are not resolved in boardrooms. His affiliates, the people who move with him, who are invested in his name staying at the top, would have heard this story the same way the streets heard it. Not as a business disagreement, as a move. And when you're Lil Baby's people, you respond to moves. That's the environment this fell into. And it's an environment that Central C, for all his global reach and cultural intelligence, was now fully inside. Central C, born Oakley Neil H.T. Caesar Sue in Shepherd's Bush, West London, is not a man who stumbled into global success. He engineered it, methodically, with a precision that most rappers twice his age have never demonstrated. While Lil Baby had been relatively quiet in 2024, Central C had remained active, dropping R&B leaning material early in the year and running multiple release cycles that kept him consistently in the conversation. By the time Band for Band dropped in May 2024, Central C's catalog was already housed under Columbia Records, one of the most powerful major labels in the world. That is not a small thing. UK rappers landing Columbia deals is not a standard trajectory. That is the result of a career managed with extreme intentionality. Every feature, every press moment, every collaboration, Central C has treated his ascent like a chess game, and he has been several moves ahead of his contemporaries at nearly every turn. His January 2025 album, Can't Rush Greatness, was released under Columbia Records. And that title alone tells you something about how Central C sees himself and his timeline. He is not in a rush. He is building something permanent. The features he selects, the artists he aligns with, the deals he makes, they all reflect that philosophy, which is exactly what made the Band for Band situation so uncharacteristic of the Central C playbook. This is not a man who gets outmaneuvered. He paid the $400,000 because he saw value in it. And he was right. The song performed, and the cultural conversation around it was exactly what C needed to cement his credibility in the US market. But the moment he turned around and asked for the same rate back and was told no, and told why, he was looking at a situation where he had given more than he received. Not just financially. In terms of positioning and respect. Central C had already been dealing with beef closer to home around this same period, publicly clashing with fellow UK rapper Hayes after C's album dropped. On track 5, 5 Star, Central C had taken a pointed shot at Hayes, referencing the Brit Awards. So C is not someone who shies away from using his music as a weapon when he feels disrespected. He has done it before, on record. But the situation with Lil Baby was different in nature. This was not a lyrical jab at a peer who won an award C thought he deserved. This was a financial and personal disrespect from a man C had extended genuine business trust to. And when that kind of thing happens to someone as calculating as Central C, someone who plays long games, who does not make moves carelessly, the response is rarely immediate or loud. It is slow, deliberate, and it has a way of showing up somewhere the other person didn't expect. The question the internet was now asking out loud, and the streets were asking in other ways, was simple. How does Central C respond to being publicly sized up and found lacking by Lil Baby? Because that response, whatever form it takes, is going to say something definitive about who Central C is in 2025 and beyond. There is a version of this story where the $400,000 disagreement stays in the category of industry gossip. Two rappers with different valuations of their market rate have a misunderstanding. It leaks online. People argue about it for a week. Then something else happens in hip-hop, and everybody moves on. That version of this story does not make it to the streets. This version did. When the story about the $400,000 refusal hit the internet, it didn't land softly. It landed the way a match lands in a room full of fumes. Because the people who were going to be most affected by it were not reading it as a streaming industry dispute. The affiliates, the crew members, the people whose livelihoods and reputations are directly tied to the names of these two artists, They were reading it as one man telling the world that the other man is less than. And in the environments that both Lil Baby and Central C emerged from, that kind of declaration carries consequences that spreadsheets cannot measure. Lil Baby's crew comes from Atlanta, a city with a specific and well-documented street culture that has produced not just some of the greatest music of the past decade, but some of the most consequential real-world confrontations in hip-hop history. The people around Baby are not music executives in suits. They are people from the same environments Baby himself came from before rap gave him an exit. And those people do not compartmentalize. When their man's name is being discussed as someone who got played, or conversely, when their man is being accused of playing someone, they are in the conversation physically, not just digitally. Central C's world, while geographically different, operates on a similar code. Shepherd's Bush, where C grew up, is not a background that produces men who absorb disrespect quietly. The UK drill scene, which Central C emerged from and helped globalize, has its own deeply ingrained understanding of honor and response. When you are from that world, and someone on the other side of the Atlantic publicly signals that you are beneath them, the people in your corner are watching to see what happens next. This is where the band for band fallout crossed a threshold that music beef rarely crosses, from lyrical or financial to something more physical, more territorial. Once affiliates are involved, once the confrontation moves from social media posts to actual encounters in real spaces, the calculus changes entirely. At that point, it is no longer about who has the better verse or who paid the fairer rate. It is about who blinks. And neither of these men, based on where they come from and how they have operated their entire careers, has a history of being the one who blinks. The irony is sitting right there in the song title. Band for band. A dollar for a dollar. A hand for a hand. The premise of the collaboration was explicit reciprocity. And the moment that reciprocity was denied, when Lil Baby reportedly said, in effect, that principle doesn't apply to me the same way it applies to you. He didn't just create a financial dispute. He created a philosophical one. He told Central C that the terms of their relationship were never equal to begin with. And to anyone who operates by the code that both of these men publicly claim to live by, that is a direct challenge. Here is the honest read of everything that has happened. The most verifiable fact at the center of this entire situation is the $400,000 figure and the context around it. Central C paid it. Lil Baby reportedly refused to match it. And that asymmetry, that unequal distribution of what the word band for band promised, is the engine behind everything that followed. It should be noted that the specific quotes attributed to Central C about the $400,000 dispute are not confirmed in his recent interviews or on his official social media accounts. That matters. When you are building a narrative around a beef, the difference between a verified statement and a viral claim is the difference between fact and fire. This story spread through the internet at a speed that outpaced any official confirmation or denial from either camp. And in that gap between what actually happened and what people believed happened, the beef took on a life of its own. That is how modern rap beef works in 2025. It does not require an official press release. It does not require a diss track. It requires a story that feels real, that touches something people already believe about the people involved, and that spreads through enough corners of the internet fast enough that the principal actors are forced into a position of either addressing it or allowing their silence to be read as confirmation. Neither Lil Baby nor Central C has officially and publicly addressed this situation in full. And that silence, particularly from Lil Baby, is itself information. Because Lil Baby is not a man who historically hides from controversy. When things in his world have been misrepresented, he has spoken. The absence of a clear rebuttal here, while not proof of anything, is something the internet has noticed and factored into its verdict. What this beef ultimately reveals is something bigger than a payment dispute. It reveals the friction that exists at the intersection of two very different musical ecosystems, Atlanta trap and UK drill, when they attempt a genuine transatlantic alliance. After the United States lit up the world with the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef, UK rap had already been generating its own lyrical sparring, with Hayes and Central C's public clash demonstrating that the UK scene is not immune to the same ego and rivalry dynamics that define American rap. Add Lil Baby into that mix, and you have not just a beef between two individuals, but a collision between two fully formed street philosophies operating under the same general code, with different expectations about how that code is applied across borders. As long as everything stays on wax, any clash between these two worlds could be a significant moment for music. But nothing about the trajectory of this situation suggests it has stayed on wax. The reports of real-world confrontations, of affiliates getting involved, of the dispute moving from financial to physical. If any portion of that is accurate, then both artists are now in territory where the consequences extend well beyond chart positions and streaming numbers. For Lil Baby, the reputational risk is clear. He is a man who built an entire brand on authenticity, on being exactly who he says he is, on never pretending the world he came from is different from the world he still inhabits. If the story circulating is accurate, that he took $400,000 from Central C and then told him he wasn't worth the same rate, that is a direct contradiction of the code he raps about on nearly every project. And the people who know that code best are not going to let it slide simply because he has more platinum plaques than Central C. For Central C, the risk is different but equally real. He is a man who has spent years positioning himself as the UK rapper who successfully crossed over, not just commercially, but culturally. A messy, unresolved beef with one of Atlanta's biggest names, especially one that involves questions about how he was treated and whether he pushed back adequately, is a story that could either cement his street credibility or expose real vulnerabilities in how he navigates the American market. The way he handles this, or the way it gets handled around him, will say something permanent about his standing. The title of the collaboration they made together was supposed to mean something, a promise embedded in two words. And the moment that promise was broken, whatever version of that story you believe, neither man walked away clean. The internet has already delivered its verdict. The streets are still counting. If any part of this story hit different for you, drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to stay on top of stories like this as they develop, make sure you're subscribed to